All right, traders, welcome to today's end of day recap. This is Christian Farmer, Market Trader Group, and it is Thursday, February 27th. Wow, let's talk volatility here. I've got the Qs chart up here. Amazing to see the end of day volatility. This has been a theme all week long, where the markets, at least a couple days this week, including today, seem like they're okay. Midday, I think the VIX was actually down. I think when I was writing my midday note, I had written that the VIX was like down 1%. And then, we're just seeing some major selling that is going on in this market right now. I don't know, like, I'm because I know folks like to know, like, oh, who's doing this selling, or how is this selling happening? It is either funds, most likely it's funds liquidating. And we're certainly seeing that, like, in the afternoon. I also think I'm going to talk more about Nvidia because it is really impacting the market. I haven't liked this for a while in the market, where there's one. It doesn't have to be Nvidia, but where one stock is really influencing the market that much. It's not. I don't want to say it's a dangerous thing. I mean, I kind of feel it is that that's kind of what it feels like to me. I don't want to scare anybody, but the market is just, it's still too dependent on this name. And we've seen this, over the last year, we've seen this a couple different times, but I wish that the market wasn't so focused on AI and AI stocks, because it's so interwoven into so many different areas. The power trade, obviously all some of the other semi names, those hyperscalers, which you hear about too. So, you know, I, I just want to clear this up because I got a couple questions from people that, when I tweeted out NVIDIA results, and this always seems to happen, right? People look at the results and they say, I don't understand, this isn't right. You know, the market's it's selling off on good results. Um, so first of all, stocks are forward looking. They're not what you hear about normally. Normally you get two bits of information when a company reports earnings. You get how they did in the past quarter, which is going to be irrelevant in terms of what it does in the future. It's just telling you what happened in the past. The guidance is important, and I think that from what I read this morning and the commentary that I listened to, is that their results, Nvidia's results, were good, but they're not. They did not grow as fast as they have in the past. So they're beginning to, the acceleration in terms of earnings is slowing, right? If that makes any sense, all right. So when you start to slow down, and you're not growing as fast as you were, it becomes an issue. Another thing that I think people are curious about and worried about is that the majority of the revenue that Nvidia gets, and again, this is from my understanding. I'm not an expert on this stuff. I've just tried to get enough information so I can make decisions and I get an understanding of what's going on. But Nvidia makes so much money from what's called these hyperscalers, right? The Meta, the Amazon, the Google, and there's only so many of these companies. There's just not that many of them, and they're already Nvidia's customer. So where are they going to get future business from? There isn't going to be another hyperscaler, at least that I'm aware of, right? Or maybe there's one, but there's not going to be three or four more. So it becomes, where are they going to get how are they going to grow their business? Right. And I think the last time that you heard from Jensen, they were talking about other products, but I don't know if those other products are going to be able to move the needle. And again, I'm not an expert on this. That's why I rely on the price action. I do think it was kind of interesting because Nvidia, the implied move was about 10%. And I had sold an iron condor, and luckily I got rid of that in the beginning of the day, and I'll show you, right. I don't mess around with those things. The first thing that I took off this morning, this was 9:36. So again, like, I sold this spread for $1.50 and I got rid of it at 30 cents. Like, whether it's 30 cents, 50 cents, the stock was up. I don't care. It's a win. I'm not trying to get that last 30 cents. And then I bought back the call spread, about 5 minutes later, and it was trading around like 70 cents. And I just didn't think Nvidia was going to hold the gains, which I can't believe that the stock was up this morning. but that's a whole nother story. So, where does this leave this stock? Um, I think that first of all, the market is still doing whatever Nvidia does. I had said this in the trading room earlier. And this was like right around here for the day. I said, I said, hey, if Nvidia can hold on and not take out the lows of the day, the market might be okay. And the market might actually be able to rally because there's a lot of things that were up earlier in the day. But once the stock took out the lows, right, you're going to see like SPY is doing the same thing. Right, it's the same time, and so it's still taking the lead from this. But I mean, what a washout at the end of the day. And again, like you could go back and sorry, I'm just gonna if I can. I don't know where that button is, but look at yesterday too. I mean, we're seeing this, right? This happened, it could like right after we get out like the lunchtime area of the market, right? This is 9:45. This one we didn't have that same issue, but there's been a couple days where it's just afternoon has been atrocious. Um, and bulls can't take control of the heavy selling that's going on. So it could be a lot of month-end selling. It could be a lot of just de-risking. I think folks are getting really worried about the economy, even though the economic data was not that bad. I think tomorrow is going to be very interesting because number one, it's end of month, and that's always interesting. But we're also going to get the PCE number, which they're looking for zero point 0.3. Now, I don't know how far, but I wish I could tell you like more details about the number. Do I think inflation is starting to come down? I do. I think that once you start laying off people, once people start getting worried about whether or not they're going to have a job, they stop spending as much, right? So that's part of what's going on here. But that may take a couple months to filter down to these economic reports, which are mostly lagging. So, you have to be very patient for what we've got going on right now. So this is TIPS, this Treasury Inflation Protected Securities over IEF. And you could see this is starting to come down. I mean, but we've got a lot of inflation. We've got a lot of inflation. I don't want to get political with this stuff, but remember, we haven't heard these terms anymore. Remember, for a while, the market was fixated on is the economy going to have a hard landing or soft landing and so forth. You begin to lay off people, and I understand, like, the administration is going after government inefficiency and they're laying off people. Right. So, rather than natural causes, they're getting involved in, laying off people. Um, is going to bring up unemployment, and it's going to bring up there's going to be growth scares because of this. Couple this with the unknown of tariffs, and you could tell what's going on in the treasury market, even though treasuries were down today. That is also giving a pretty good risk off feel. So what do we have on our hands? Probably a correction. I don't know how things are going to look. Once we get out of this month, we know that that the seasonality is and has been weak for the second half of February. That's living up to exactly but how it works. But support. Now that we've broken through the value area, we kind of we were hanging out down here, holding in here. I had wrote about in my midday note that we were in a position of weakness below the 50-day moving average, and bad things happen when you're in a position of weakness. And we broke through this value area. I don't know if we're oversold enough. My guess is probably not. Maybe like a heavy selling day tomorrow maybe gets us to those oversold levels. I think maybe we're getting closer to that. But we're still not that uh far from the highs. And again, I go back to like where we were just a couple hours ago, and the financials were looking good. And like, even if you look at the regional banks today, they actually finished positive for the day. Now again, they're not in a position of strength here either, but just goes to show you that there's a lot of this is the unwinding of the AI trade, and that could have a long way to go. So that's my opinion. Very simply, the best thing that I could kind of tell you too about trading and when this type of selling pressure happens is you just got to be a risk manager. I was holding on to a couple positions. I even, thought I saw some nice setups in the beginning of today. Cisco looked pretty good. There's a lot of things that were turning above their 5 period moving average, but the end of the day is the most important. And I ended up dumping that position. Bros was a position too that was working quite well for me. Bros is still above the 5 period moving average. So I decided to sell it just because the selling pressure is just too dicey. Again, like, if it if the selling pressure is bad enough where you go out and you actually go out and get a cup of coffee, or you go get lunch and your P&L is gone for the day, it's not worth the risk. And that's how fast this market is moving right now. The VIX, by the way, we're back. You get a full green bar. I mentioned a couple of days ago that you had like a long wick, which is basically like what I want to see generally. But this is a fake out, right? It looked like, oh, maybe volatility is abating here after this. So, but not so much, as we have a new closing high in the VIX above 20. So I'll leave it there's not much more I could really kind of add to this right now. When things are trending down like this, you've got to take protect. You either are hedged or you're just increasing your cash, because I don't know if we continue to move down like this, then I would be looking at the top of the value area. And it's funny because not funny, but when we started the year, I thought that we were going to get the correction here, and I think many people may have thought that too, right? That we were going to see a bigger correction maybe to start the year, but hey, it's February and we have not taken, I think the positive here is we have not taken out the lows here, but this is ugly price action, and below the 50-day moving average is not a great place to be. IWM, can move. I think I priced out what IWM was due to price or due to move for tomorrow's PCE. IWM likes to move a lot on big economic data, and I think it was a 1.4% move earlier. But again, IWM continues to break down here, right? Which is also not a good sign. I don't have anything in IWM or anything like that, but I use this as a proxy, right? We've talked about how this broke the 200-day moving average, or I guess this was earlier in the week where it broke, and first time below the 200-day moving average since the end of 2023. But this is not a good look at all, and this will once the week is done. It's not going to light up right now, but once we have a closing bar, this will trigger the bearish 80% rule for the year, meaning there will be an 80% chance that we go from here down to here by the end of the year, right? Unless we break back above the value area. I also wanted to look at the semis too, right? Because the semis I view as a kind of a leading indicator too. And this is also the bearish 80% rule, looking for a move down to about 213, right? And again, like if that happens, that's a 7% move, after, and today, what were the semis down today? They were down 6%. So it's basically one more day of this. If and that would wash out this whole AI stuff. Um, which I view as, I do view that, like, I think that the market needs to get away from the AI theme. Um, that's not something that I think is sustainable, and what this dependence on Nvidia. So it might actually be a good thing when all said and done, if the market is not so dependent on Nvidia and the AI trade. So I'll leave it there. That's the silver lining. If you can manage, as I said in yesterday's video, if you can manage to not get so caught up in this at this moment, and be fresh for when the selling pressure abates, you might be in a good place for the rest of the year. All right, guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.